minus the buffer. We are good. Good to see you all. Welcome again to Tokyo Tonight 2. My name is Hiko Simon. I'm here at the same time every week, 10:30 p.m. Japan Standard Time. Currently 5:36 a.m. in Seattle, 8:36 a.m. in New York. So welcome to all the people brave enough to get up early on a cold morning in the US and on a warm morning, I guess, if you're in South America. 1:36 p.m. middle of the day for the people in UK. Welcome. We've got 9:30 in Singapore, 11:30 in Brisbane, 12:30 past midnight in Sydney, and in New Zealand. I don't have many people who speak with an accent like this. Not that this is much of a Kiwi accent anymore, because it's 2:30 in the morning, which is funny. It's actually like New Zealand's 4 hours ahead of Tokyo. Yeah, it's 4 hours ahead of Tokyo, but only 3 hours behind Seattle, so it's closer to America than it is Japan, which is kind of mind-blowing to me. I got this plugin. It's really cool if you use Chrome. I got this plugin called Fox Clocks, and you install it. It's got all these times along the bottom of your browser, which I need because I work with people like in different time zones all the time. I'm always like checking the time and trying to schedule meetings, so it's actually super cool. Anyway, excellent to see you, and indeed, greetings right back at you. Believe in yourself. Good to see you, Sergeant Bilko. Good morning, Odie Jr. Big Boom. Yes, good to see you. Who else? We got Kangen Kodos. Good to see you. Missing the pre-show music. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Is the stream offline? No, I believe it is online, or I'm just sitting here talking to myself, and as you know, I'd probably still be doing the show anyway. Yes, who else we got here? We got Odie Jr. Believe in yourself. Quint Rankin. Boom, good to see you. The J-Vlog. Greetings, 07. Yes, boom, more like that perhaps. And who else we got here? 7:37 a.m. in Missouri. Good to see that, Odie. Actually, I never realized that you were in Missouri. I watched Ozark recently, and I must admit I don't have much of an image of Missouri other than like Smokey and the Bandit. Like I know that they drive through there with the beer and stuff like that, and I've got that kind of image of that. But I must admit I don't know how much Ozark is like the Ozarks actually, but it was kind of new. It was a kind of aspect of America I hadn't seen before, which I did enjoy. So I know people from Missouri, but I've never been there before, so actually that's pretty cool. 7:37 a.m. Okay, so you're an hour behind New York, so there you go. That's pretty cool. You haven't watched Ozark? Yeah, okay, well I took a long time to get around to it, and honestly, I mean, it's not blockbuster. It's you watch it, it's okay. I started watching it and I kept watching it. I'm sort of like, is this like the most awesome thing ever? Do you have to go watch it? No, but it's okay. So yes, the J-Vlog, it's freaking cold. It's fudging cold wherever they are. When will the Japanese start insulating their buildings? Oh yes, so they will never start insulating their buildings. They don't do that. It's just a thing here. I remember I used to live in an apartment near Shibuya that in summer was hotter inside. It was like opening the door to like an oven or a microwave when I'd get home, and in winter it was colder than the outside. It was like a refrigerator. It was just freaky. And it was like a triangle shaped standalone, rather than being like an apartment building, like a typical like boxes sort of apartment building. It was like a standalone, like above and below units. The guy who owned it was next door, and it was just a crappy piece of land in a triangle shape that he just built like completely on top of. It was seriously one of the best. It was the best place I ever lived in as a single guy. And but yes, it was with very cheap materials. And I think the thing is, when we build houses in New Zealand, and I'm sure in Europe as well, they build assuming that the house is going to be there for 200 or 300 years maybe, you know, and they think about making them last, and they invest in things to make them last, you know. So they do that. They put the proper paint, they put the solid roof, they put the insulation. In Japan, you expect, you know, things to, if it does, either it's going to lose its value and go away after like, you know, 30 years, or it's going to be wiped out by an earthquake or a typhoon or a tsunami, or in the old days a fire. So yeah, so the J-Vlog, I'm sorry you guys didn't get notifications. I was lazy. I was binge watching YouTube stuff just before this. I didn't set up the stream early. I'm sorry if people missed the music. In fact, I'm kind of glad to hear that. That means I'm motivated. I will come back and try to be better prepared. I didn't even try this out tonight. I ended up just cutting it a bit too fine. So anyway, apologies for that. And for those of you who didn't get the notification, but I'm glad that you're here. It's great to see it filling up the way that we're doing. Also good to see more people rolling in. We've got Mary Lagos. Good evening. Sashiburi Nene, good to see you indeed. Sashiburi, yes. James Kelly, good to see you. Boom. Andrea Moboy, good to see you very late where you are, I guess, past midnight, so thank you for joining. Odie Jr., thank you for the acknowledgement that it's okay to be lazy every now and then. Yeah, it is what it is. I do make sure I'm here. I didn't shower. I showered actually this morning, so I'm kind of good, and I'll shower tomorrow morning. Lately I've been showering like twice a day, keeping extra clean. But yes, it'll be a bit too late after this stream to do, and I tried to do it before, but I'm in a queue, so yeah. Tokyo 503, good to see you. Hi, Tokyo 503, that's a new name. Are you someone that I know, or are you new, or are you a lurker? It's good to see you, Tokyo 503, and welcome to the show. This is Tokyo Tonight. I'm Hiko Simon, and this is the gang. An upper class bunch. I don't know. I like to think. I think we've got a good crowd of people who are in here, and it's great to see you guys. Drop by it. Andrew Moboy, good to see you. It's so hot, says Mr. Cordy Chep. It's too hot. Well, I'll tell you what, I was looking at the weather this week. Tokyo had a couple of days where it was like nearly 20 degrees this week, and I looked at, just out of curiosity, the weather in Auckland, in New Zealand, where it's currently midsummer, just we're getting into winter here, and it was like 17 degrees. It was cooler in New Zealand during their summer than it was here in Tokyo during our winter. That said, today was full-on winter. It was like 9 degrees high temperature, 7 degrees low temperature, which in Fahrenheit is like minus 100. That's a scientific conversion. I'm sorry, but Americans, you have to get on board with the rest of humanity on units, please. It's kind of ironic. Why do you guys keep using imperial units? Like, I thought you fought the War of Independence. The French even helped you, and they gave you a big statue and everything, and yet you guys are sticking with the old red code measurements. It doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, it's cold, and that's all you need. No, it's cold by Tokyo standards, of course. It's snowing everywhere else in Japan. So people in Tokyo are not allowed to say that we're cold, but we are cold, so there we go. I'd say that you're a classy bunch of people, not such upper class, that didn't come out right. I meant you're a classy bunch of, you already know this, of course. And it's good to see. I think people here are pretty good. Metric is communist, joking. Well, there we go. Yes, everywhere is communist, so that's all good. You made the same comment on a video and people got really angry at you. Well, there we go. That's probably the thing. Yeah, they shower twice because it's so hot. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it becoming summery. Well, I am, because I'm going to Australia for summer, and that is always nice. I'm getting away at the end of the year, but I'll be here for Christmas, but I'll be going after Christmas to Australia. Tai Nakamura, great to see you. Yeah, dude. Boom. I've actually been watching a bunch of surf videos lately, so maybe this is where I should launch off, actually, that what I've been doing, and part of the reason I've become lazy. Hey, she's in Taisu, good to see you. Wow, all the cool kids are rocking. Yeah, it's good to see this. I, of course, as I mentioned last week, I signed up for YouTube Premium. That was putting up a random message on my screen when I was logged in saying, do you want to try YouTube Premium in Japan for 30 days for 1,500 something yen? I can't remember exactly. First month free, and I thought, well, you know, I'm a YouTube Power user, so let's try this out. And I tried it out. And there were three things about it that I liked, that I noticed anyway. One is the original content library, honestly, is pretty thin. It certainly isn't like Amazon Video or like Netflix. But it had Cobra Kai, and I watched Cobra Kai, and Cobra Kai was awesome. I mean, I'm a Karate Kid fan, 1985, like 8 years old, 9 years old. That was like the perfect timing for a kid to watch Karate Kid. And that was a great movie, and the series was just done brilliantly. So that was the original bait. And then I must admit, I was curious to see what are the extra features, what's it like. I mentioned this before. I think the two features that I really like that you get added just into the standard YouTube mobile app, and it's really on mobile that this kills, is that you get an extra button up here that when you see a video you can download it. Or you can click on to download, and what that does is when you're on a Wi-Fi connection, not on cellular, it'll buffer up all these downloaded videos. I'll come back to why I think that's actually the killer feature, and that's why I wish, honestly, rather than paying like for a premium version, I wish that was just available in standard. But the other thing is that they brought back the old feature that used to be able to listen to videos in the background, you know, without having to watch the screen. And again, they blocked apps that enabled that, and they stopped that on the default app. Probably because they want eyes on the ads, you know, on the videos. They're getting monetization, they're getting the ad revenue on the videos on the basis of trusting that you are getting, you know, X number of eyes on these videos. And so if people are watching with the thing, you know, with the screen turned off and the phone in the pocket, just listening to it like a podcast, which I think is an awesome way to watch YouTube, they're not getting, you know, the advertisers are going to get upset. So when you are paying the monthly subscription, you don't have to pay for the ad revenues anymore. You don't have to watch the ads. All the ads are gone. So in exchange for that, you can now listen to YouTube without looking at the screen or even having the screen turned on. You can have it in the background. I can be playing other apps and listening to videos, which is great. The download one is the killer feature for me, because the fact is that yes, it's true, you can watch videos anyway, of course, just on a good mobile connection, and Japan has fantastic internet connections. But you are using a lot of data, especially now. So many videos are 1080p and 4K. It does add up to a lot of data, and you can get a big data bill, even if you've got a large limit. I've got a 20 gigabyte limit, and I still exceed it a lot of months from watching Netflix and so on out and about. The other thing is that I travel for work a lot. So what I started doing, just because I fly a lot, was I would, before I go flying, I would like download entire series. I'd download like Breaking Bad or Narcos or whatever I'm watching, and I put it on my tablet from Netflix or whatever, and I'd watch it on the plane, and it will make the flights just awesome, and the hotel things. When I'm traveling for work, I'm staying in hotels, I just watch what's on what's saved up. And it always frustrated me. I thought, well, I could be catching up on so many YouTube videos if I could, on all this boring time that you spend on at airports, airplanes, and hotels. And it's a totally wasted time because you can't do it. Whereas now you can, and I've been experimenting going through. And yeah, just basically, even if I'm on a wide connection, just seeing every video that I want to see and clicking download and watching it later, and then just auto playing all the downloaded videos. That's great. It means I'm not using my data. It means I can actually watch a whole lot more, like in just free moments. And it's yeah, I've been watching a lot of content this week. The consequence of which is I posted, here we go, this last week. That is my my iPhone consumption this week. I have 25 hours. 10 hours of that's Cobra Kai, but the other 15 hours, yeah, I've been watching a lot of YouTube. I was also thinking, geez, well, what's this going to do to my channel? I mean, I made my channel to make YouTube more watchable, but actually the whole it complements, because the idea is that my channel is for people who want to primarily watch via subscriptions, and this doesn't change the subscriptions functionality. It's just the same as before. So from that perspective, you can just tap on the top left of a video on my channel, on the mobile app, for example, and you can go into the standard YouTube app and download it. So if there's content there that you want to watch later that you notice because of my channel, you can now add action. But that does make me think that when we do updates to the site, and I'm now pretty close now to kicking off setting up the monetized site, where we will add improved features. Basically, we'll keep the standard site as it is for everybody, free, and it works really well. But I want to kind of make little tweaks and improvements based on how much I can pay for it, based on having subscribers, supporting the site. And this is something I think I want to tap into for people who are using this to make it a little bit more convenient. The first thing I really want to do with the site is make it so that you can filter by the length of videos, so you can catch up with more videos in compact periods of time. But anyway, that's pretty cool. So good night, Andrea Mobile. I know that you're up really late. And yes, she's anti. So of course I'm trying to justify my brainchild's existence. Well, partly I must admit I was concerned that its existence wasn't justified, and then I realized it's a good compliment. But certainly the YouTube Premium thing is pretty cool, although I don't think it's worth the money that it's done. I'd say it should always have been this way. But anyway, so that's the result there, is I've watched a lot of YouTube this week. Olivia D, good to see you, welcome. Yes indeed, let me do something quick. Let me pop out the comments over here, pop out chat, just so I make sure I also catch all the comments, especially ones that message to me. So good night, Andrea Mobile, have a good night there. And yeah, so that was a long intro. Let's get into the other topics, because I've got quite a lot of topics, although some of them repeat this week, so let's get into this. Seoul, as you know, now there have been 2 cases in the last few weeks where for the first time ever, in spite of the treaty settling all war-related claims between South Korea and Japan in order to establish diplomatic relations and a payment of, at the time, $500 million in 1965. And in spite of that, the South Korean Supreme Court has now, in 2 cases in the last couple of weeks, found that individual claims against Japanese companies that were being used by the Japanese government for war production in World War II and were using conscripted labor involving South Korean citizens. Of course, it involved Japanese as well, but to the extent it was using South Korean citizens who were at the time under Japanese ancillus, they were forcibly integrated into Japan. Japanese citizens, but obviously not quite the same. So yes, those people, they've now found for the first time that they can make personal claims, and they've been now successful claims against, I believe, Kobe Steel it was, and now Mitsubishi Heavy, and likely to be 70 other Japanese companies. It's going to open up some floodgates. The Japanese government, although again never looks good arguing back about anything to do with war guilt, but the Japanese government saying this is outrageous, and the South Korean government saying, hey, we've got an idea, why don't we set up a fund which the South Korean government will set up so that the South Korean government can administer the payments to all of the war laborers, and we suggest that all of the guilty companies contribute to this fund. The Japanese government's position is the South Korean government should be settling all the claims, because they agreed, government to government, to handle all of the individual claims, which they didn't do. They decided to spend the money on development in South Korea. To the extent that they find that there are valid individual claims, it's up to the South Korean government to settle. It doesn't look good saying that, but that's kind of the position. The idea of setting up a compensation fund for wartime laborers, again, sounds like a perfectly reasonable and good idea, and a kind of a good compromise in some ways, but it's exactly what Abe agreed with Park for the comfort women, and that became like the worst thing that she did, and now they've dissolved the fund, and people have, well, some people have taken the compensation and some haven't. I get the feeling it's just loaded, that you're just going to turn this into another comfort woman disaster issue for Japan, that it just isn't going to be able to do anything right, including if you set up this fund. So Japan, once again, I mean, it's just a never-ending and depressing saga where it's, I think it's unresolvable. I really do. It's sad and depressing, but you know, it just is what it is, and it's the result of the misdeeds of the war in that time. And there's nothing really Japan can do to make it right. And there's nothing that South Korea's got a lot of internal issues that contribute to this, that just mean it's never going to be settled. And frankly, the people who are entitled to the compensation are going to be gone soon. And you know, some of them seem quite happy, actually, like in the comfort woman case, to go to their graves with the injustice. Like they don't want to give that up before they go away. They said that explicitly. Indeed, they're entitled to their anger. I don't know what's going to happen with this one, but again, it's just going to be another thorn in the side of future. It's poisoning future relations, and that's by design to an extent, and it's also a logical outcome and consequence of you know, the things that Japan did during the war. So that's interesting. I'll be following that. This is kind of funny. This is an Italian chap who owns and runs his own Italian restaurant. He gave an interview, and this guy is in Tokyo. What's his name? Mario. I mean, the perfect sunglasses, open chest Italian guy called Mario owns a pasta place. Apparently, the bacon that Caesarea uses. Caesarea is a super cheap, affordable family restaurant that is nominally Italian, but you know, very Japanese style Italian, cheap and affordable. Out of all the family restaurants like Gusto and Jonathan and you know, Coco's and Caesarea to me is the best. The meat salad is really good. It's super affordable and quite good food. So this guy goes, he says every few months he goes there to eat the Caesarea pasta, because the bacon in it reminds him of the bacon he had growing up at home. So it's kind of funny, a lot of coverage here, like this Italian guy, he's lived in Japan for 30 years, and they're saying if he thinks that Caesarea tastes like home-cooked Italian food. Even the Japanese internet commenters are saying, yeah, maybe this is a signal that it's time for this guy to go home. But apparently there are some commonalities with the bacon. And J-Vlog, preach! The J-Vlog, seriously, it's Mr. Kordychep. It is cheap and wonderful food. You go, that only 50% right. I don't know, it's a borderline. I wouldn't give that a pass. I guess technically you get the pass, you get the participation medal for that comment, but Caesarea is awesome. I mean, seriously. And look, Mario says so. I mean, what could be a better advertisement? Nissan. Where do we start? Beats McDonald's. Indeed it does. She's enticed. Although that's a kind of a low standard, but yes, I mean, McDonald's is okay every now and then as well, but yeah. Indeed. Nissan, where to begin? Two things happening with Nissan. Of course, the issue about whether Gon had prepared a plan to pay himself 30 or 45 million or whatever, however many tens of millions it was, he was going to be paid to himself as a consultant upon his leaving the company at some time in the future. deferred compensation that instead of being a highly paid CEO now, because high compensation is generally unpalatable, even though he was officially on $10 million, 100 million, 1 billion yen, or 10 million US dollars salary, which is 10 times more than most major corporation CEOs get in Japan. And that was in itself seen as unacceptable. People seem to agree that he was worth 80 million or 70 million or whatever, and this would be sort of paid to him later, sort of his golden parachute when he decided to leave the company. The line that they're sticking to, the line that the Nissan internal investigation is that some whistleblowers found documents saying, uncovering this plan to pay him all these tens of millions as an outside consultant when he left, and this hadn't been properly reported. In Japan, you have to report all current and equity-based and future compensation that sort of is locked in, and given that this hadn't been reported and it wasn't known to many people within Nissan, there were outraged internal people who whistleblew about it, and people on the Nissan board saw it as an opportunity to kind of cook up a way to oust him. They started an internal investigation that took 6 months. When the plan, it seemed, came through that Renault was going to fully merge Nissan and Renault and make him the boss, the CEO of the company jumped, handed over the results of the internal investigation to prosecutors, saying that they breached securities law requirements to report future compensation, and he was taken into custody, where he's now been questioned for 20 days, and it looks like they've just announced that they're probably going to re-arrest him on Monday to keep him in detention, basically until he confesses, maybe all the way through until Christmas. The line that him and his corporate lawyer and his number two are saying is that yes, they had drawn up informal plans to do this. There was discussion of it. Everything was being run through the governance mechanisms of the company, including the corporate council, and none of it was yet actually locked into formal plans meeting the required threshold for the reporting. Sounds very technical, but basically they're pretty confident that they were working under good legal advice, that they were acting in a compliant manner, and in any case it's just a simple corporate reporting issue. The money wasn't actually paid to him, it was just future plans. But based on this, they put him in jail, and they're questioning him for basically a corporate transparency and a corporate governance issue. So in the meantime, back to Nissan. What's Nissan been doing? Well, Nissan's currently this week recalling 150,000 cars because in the third such scandal in 6 months, it turns out that engineers at Nissan, basically people working at the car plants, had failed to properly carry out safety inspections on brakes on cars that were going out of the plant. So they have to be called back and go through the appropriate inspections. Mr. Kordychev asked the question, was he trying to tax dodge? The answer is no, not exactly. I mean, I'm sure there was probably a tax benefit. They would have structured it in the most beneficial way possible. There was certainly resentment at the way that he was receiving corporate compensation for his overseas housing and whatnot, his sort of perks, and the idea that because this was being done through a Dutch company that has almost zero corporate tax, that this was being done as a constructive tax dodge. But no, the fact was this was sort of loosely planned future salary. This wasn't currently received. I mean, he was getting a ton of money, and probably you could have found, but they're not holding him for tax evasion per se. They're holding him for misreporting, for underreporting his salary, as CEOs of listed corporations are required to do. So it's actually like a securities violation. So they're holding this guy in prison for a long time. And by the way, if you think this is because he's a gaijin, it's half true. It's a gaijin in the sense that the company is definitely ganging up on him because they wanted to block the takeover of Nissan by Renault, and they probably saw it as an opportunity to get rid of their gaijin boss. But in terms of the police, this is how they treat everyone who gets arrested. And although we talk about Olympus and Takata, cases where people didn't get arrested and it seemed outrageous and it looks inconsistent with this, there's certainly the cases of Horier, there's the recruit company, there's the Ozawa, there's all these other cases of people who have been treated very similarly when prosecutors decide to commit to making an arrest. So it's similar to those. So anyway, coming back, the recall on the failed inspections, and this is the third case where Nissan engineers have again just proven to be lazy and sloppy and deceptive, and in this case on checking brakes on pretty fundamental safety checks on cars. And I would submit, so some people are saying, I saw some comments when I posted this, oh, this is all part of the GONE culture of saving money at all cost. encouraging people to cut corners. And there's the opposite view, which says, well, there's been all of these sloppy inspection scandals that have been going through that were pervasive in the car industry, not just in Nissan, also Mitsubishi Motors had similar problems, and Kobe Steel, all these other very traditional Japanese companies that have the same issue. And where it comes from, I don't know the companies obviously well enough, but certainly it creates a... When NHK was covering this Gon scandal and they were talking with Nissan employees anonymously, covering their voices and their faces, and these people would always talk about how much they resented having Renault engineers come to assess their company and their supply chain management, and say that these guys didn't have engineering skills anything close to us. We were way above their level of technology, their level of production efficiency. So to come and have them lecture us, really offended everybody. And frankly, Nissan saw itself as having been, one time in financial trouble, opportunistically bailed out by a smaller, more backward French company. And now that company was looking to milk Nissan for its later success, which now exceeds that of Renault. And these engineers resented this idea of an inferior company telling them what to do. But I would submit that it's exactly that arrogance by the engineers that put Nissan in the hole that it was in. It wasn't bad luck that Nissan wasn't selling cars. The company was being run badly, and they were making cars that were being made by and for the engineers. And that people didn't want to buy. And Renault, and to Gon's credit, it wasn't just changing the supply chain efficiency. He actually got in and really shook up how they decide on what cars to make, and the way that they sell cars, and they got selling cars again. And they've just overtaken Toyota. My opinion, looking at this from the outside, is that Nissan's success has been, certainly from a marketing perspective, I think Gon has contributed, and I don't think they could say that they would have even survived, let alone had the recovery that they've had, if it weren't for Gon. And as for this, to me, this looks more symptomatic of exactly the type of scandals that happens due to arrogance and laziness, by basically, aging and self-interested engineers. I mean, to me, this actually shows that as much as these Nissan engineers are on TV bad-mouthing foreign companies trying to take them over and how superior their skills are, well, apparently not if they're skipping the safety inspections and the quality inspections. So I don't know. I find, and the irony is, this is a safety issue. These are not checking the brakes on cars. People could get killed, and yet no one's going to jail for this. They're doing the car recall. They're going to get a hand slap, but in many ways this is far more serious, and it actually does call into question the actual operation of the company by the CEO Saikawa, who's the guy who threw Gon under the bus. So to me, really it just looks like Nissan's falling apart actually at the moment. I know that they see this as their big opportunity to get to break off with Renault and to go back on their own. Now they're healthy, and here they are already doing a Mitsubishi Motors, hiding the recall reports in a locker during the inspections that got them, basically Mitsubishi, can't sell cars in Japan anymore. Because of what they did. No one trusts them. They sell overseas, and Nissan's doing the same thing to themselves. So yeah, Kang and Kodos. By the way, I'll say I love Nissan's. I've been really enjoying getting up to speed series on Donut Media. I know it's really annoying for some people the way it's presented, the fast cut sort of format, but I love it. They feature all these fantastic Japanese cars, and geez, the Silvia, the Integras, that's Honda, sorry, shit, that's not right. But the 200 SXs, the whole Silvia platform. Nissan makes great cars. They do. And the thing is, it's really frustrating to see them undermining that with their own arrogance and laziness, which is what I think this is from. So yes, I've been watching too much YouTube this week. That's actually disturbing and not healthy, but here we go. This is what happens when I can download files, which means I can spend more downtime catching up on videos, which is cool. It also made me, and I'll say I did a bit of a cull on my video subscriptions, because I realized that they're just too cluttered, and when I was going through looking for downloadable content, as much as I kept a lot, and it does make it easier to watch with my channel, I did realize that there's some stuff which I always just sort of skip. Either because the channels are really old, or it's just content that I thought would be interesting to watch for a while, so I stopped. Well, downtime is any time that you'd be sitting around doing nothing, so yes, I think you can imagine all the connotations, but mainly on the train. In Japan, you've got a lot of commuting time where you don't have to drive, you just have to sit still and wait. and you have a lot of that in Tokyo. I've got more than a 1 hour commute each direction each day, so you know, I've got 2 hours of downtime there, and then in the evening I've got downtime. So yeah, and other times during the day. So there we go. No, I do not watch YouTube at work. Once again, I'll watch work-related YouTube at work, but actually I'm definitely not in the habit of watching YouTube at work, and I wouldn't make, and you can tell by my comments. But yes. But this does make that easier to do, certainly. I certainly watch this now. I'd watch Netflix on the way into work, and I guess now I'm going to watch YouTube on the way into work instead, so you never know. So anyway, yeah, this is a really good article again by Motoko Rich. She's really good to follow on Twitter. She writes for the New York Times covering Japan. Good writer. She actually covers Japan in a multicolored and not you know, underwear vending machines kind of a way. And she's covered the debate about the immigration bill which got passed this week. So the immigration bill, I guess we should be on the one hand cheering that we are going to be getting possibly 400,000 more immigrants coming into Japan in the next 4 years. It's going to be a significant increase from the 2 million right now. Remembering that of that 2 million, 1 million of that's basically permanent residents like Zainichi, Koreans and Chinese. And so, you know, it's really going to significantly boost the kind of actual fluid migrant resident population in Japan. A quick summary of the debate. This is trying to sum up. There's an interesting situation. Normally what would happen, I think you expect, is in most countries, it would be the left-wing party would be more the party in favor of liberalizing immigration. Pardon me. I feel fine, but my voice just went a bit strange there. So it would be the Liberal Party that would be liberalizing immigration. The Conservative parties would be saying, oh my God, we're letting in all these criminals, the world's going to end terrorists and criminals and so on by more immigration, and that would be the debate. And frankly, the Conservative backlog, they're going to steal our jobs, steal our women, bomb our cities, that Conservatives would say taps right into the fear and anxieties of most people, and this is why immigration is just such an explosive and nasty topic in most countries. In Japan, we had this really weird situation of the tables being completely reversed. The government is run by extremely conservative people. I mean, Abe himself, who for a long time said that immigration isn't necessary to maintain Japan. You know, it's a he's championing this, and the business council is championing this, that all these companies, there are companies right now, there's a statistic for companies that are going out of business that are not losing money. They're making good profits, but they're shutting down because they can't hire employees to maintain their businesses. They're going out of business from not being able to have enough employees. So they're actually screaming for their lives at the moment, the Kendama, that they want the ability to hire more rank and file workers. If you look online about this debate, and it's kind of ironic, in a way it's great, it's fantastic that the most conservative people in the government are the ones sponsoring this bill, because it means that the people who would be doing the nastiest arguments against immigration are kind of stifled by that. There are a lot of people pointing out online, you know, if we have this worker shortage, then how come our wages haven't increased in 30 years? Which is a legitimate question, and what's happening with the workers that are coming in right now. The opposition, you know, which is basically the Communist Party, the Socialist Party, the equivalent of the Labour Party, the Democrats in Japan. They've done all these surveys which have found that certainly under the under the apprenticeship visa scheme, 2/3 of them are earning less than minimum wage, and working on the working to death level of hours, doing menial non-skill based work. The idea was that this was a skill training visa, and they're not doing that, and they're pointing out that yeah, the reason Japanese are not getting better wages is because the government is allowing these workers to be abused. Apparently under the apprenticeship visa, the whole scheme is not being managed by the government. They've outsourced it to like an NPO that doesn't have the resources to do it, and people are just abusing the hell. They're using it as a slave labor visa, and they're pointing out, given that we've got a worker system that's being so widely abused, and we've passed this law in a rush without any safeguards to make sure that this won't affect you know, the working conditions of Japanese. It won't have an effect of bringing in kind of an underclass of low wage laborers into society. All these other sorts of things about language integration, the lessons of what happened when they brought in Brazilians and Peruvians and so on of Japanese extraction, and all these towns in Gunma and Saitama where they found that their kids just dropped out of school, they never learned Japanese properly, and they had trouble integrating. What's going to be, where's the accounting for all the lessons of all the failures of attempts at bringing mass immigration to Japan and making sure that this time it's going to work, given that we're going to do it in such a big way? This is what the opposition was arguing against the bill that was coming in. They were saying that basically it's being too rushed and we need to think this through and get more detail in. Truth is as well, opposition's going to opposition. So of course that's their justification for opposing the law, that this isn't well thought through and we need lots of time and more committees and more time. But of course they've also got an agenda of just stopping, hindering the government and trying to make the government look bad and make it look like they haven't thought this through. Of course that's part of the agenda. So of course when the government said an announcement that they were hell or high water going to pass this immigration bill to allow more foreigners into the country within the current Piet session, they were going to do that. The opposition was always going to scream that this was, a terrible, terrible thing without being racist, which they did, that it was weird. And it's kind of ironic that now they're doing these protests, that the government's rammed through this law without thinking it through, that's going to violate the human rights of the foreigners that they're letting in. It's kind of funny. They're trying to be like nice to foreigners at the same time as saying that this immigration law, letting more of them in, is a disaster. And that's where there is this kind of weird, ambivalent kind of tone. For general Japanese, there's just the thing about, having underemployment. It sounds like Japan has an amazing situation, that we have all this money. There are companies going out of business for lack of workers, not for lack of money. So, surely the value of young people should be going up. With so few young people and so many elderly people, this should be like paradise. This should be Disneyland for young people. The pick of whatever job, people competing and out competing each other for salaries and so on, and it's really weird. It's true that while younger people certainly don't have to feel the obligation that they owe their entire lives to companies that employ them anymore, and that they have more mobility and more freedom to choose where they go and this and that, salaries are not different, and working conditions are arguably not that different. You've got a society that for hundreds of years has been based on the idea that when you work for someone, you're like their apprentice and you have to do whatever they say. And that, the whole senpai kohai of building up, the idea that leverage has transferred to young people. Hierarchy in Japan is pretty rigid, I suppose, in that regard. The idea that elderly have to start, increasing and recognizing a shift in value away from them towards young people hasn't happened. And certainly there is a perception which needs to be addressed and needs to be properly managed, that the dividend that they're supposed to have from their scarcity is going to be lost on importing cheap labor to replace them, and they need to be careful about that. So the government, they need to not just, again, it's very self-interested. They're very focused on elderly care. I mean, they're worried that nobody's going to look after themselves, and it is this phenomenon. Japan is a super age society, a society where already I think more than 30% of the society is aged more than 65. The idea of a society that's going to become more and more elderly, running the society purely for their self-benefit at the expense of other generations in the society, that's kind of a worst case scenario of an aging society that people hope wouldn't happen, but it's already starting to happen. You can see it. So yes, Hiko 2020, go for it, Mr. Kordychev. I'm not eligible to vote in New Zealand. I'm not eligible to vote in Japan. I can't even vote for people that I like, let alone myself. But yes, vote for, write me in. I'm like a North Korean citizen. So there you go. Wow, it's like 11:15. I've got like 30 stories. I'm like 3 in, so I'm doing really well. Okay, I'm gonna have some water and let's charge back into this, do some more. Naturalize. Yeah, well, that's an interesting proposition. But seriously, who would who would want to run for government in Japan? It doesn't make any sense to me, actually. But yes. The Japan Times last week did a editorial that I read out on here. Now they're saying, yeah, it's a big misunderstanding, guys. Please don't unsubscribe to our paper. Yeah, good luck with that. The latest non-native creative from Arisha in Tokyo. I mean, obviously, as someone who already speaks English, I don't watch her English stuff, although it's amazing. They've got 2 million subscribers on the English 101. I'm much more interested in this project that she's doing herself, non-native creative, and she's put up the second video. The first one was, of course, the Big in Japan, first episode that she did, that I was also involved in helping. She's talking with this person who's running sort of an international kendama, like basically like you have these big yo-yo competitions, and it looks a lot like that, how they're sort of setting up a Japanese equivalent of the yo-yo competitive circuit, involving competitions and tournaments and demos of people that just do awesome stuff with kendama. And someone who's involved in setting that up, Japanese person, but internationalizing it. It's a really cool video. I had no idea that this culture said. I know how popular kendama is, having a Japanese kid, but yeah, it's worth looking at. It's kind of cool. Apparently, there's a good story there about some foreigners who were mistaken for practicing using weapons, or like practicing out on the street, and some old lady saw them and thought they were nunchaku. Which I'm just thinking, that wouldn't that like be an awesome movie? I just thought like that would be like, that could be like Steven Seagal's next comeback. Like he could like enter the kendama and use the kendama like nunchaku. Like that would be sweet. I would totally watch that. The next John Wick. What's he up to now? 3, 4? I don't know. Seriously, call me Keanu. I'll take 3%. I'll be very reasonable on the idea. Anyway, that's pretty cool. Bouncing balls. That's what they are. 2020. Yes, I was just talking to about the skipping the brakes. Where we're going, we don't need brakes. Nissan CEO, yes, his oversight certainly should be called into question. Too busy putting his boss in jail, but there we go. Chuck Norris and his lethal kendamas, that's right. Yes, there's all sorts of directions you can go with that. I like the creativity I'm seeing here. Softbank, oh dude, Softbank went down. They went down, and it was weird because Softbank is actually launching an IPO, a general stock market listing of their mobile division, because so Softbank wasn't originally a mobile phone company. They were a big investment fund that invested in lots of internet startups. They were like a sort of an angel investor fund. Masayoshi Son. So you know the story about Masayoshi Son. He's a Nikkei, he's a Zainichi Korean Japanese guy. Parents are Korean. I think he still holds Korean citizenship. I'm not sure if he does or not, but he basically super smart, went to MIT, I believe, got the patent on the calculator, got royalties from every freaking calculator in the world, became super rich when he was like 19 years old or some stuff. Already the richest man in Japan. He started investing in all these companies, and when you think about SoftBank, yeah, he had some loose change that he threw it when Vodafone screwed up J-Phone basically and left the country. He got J-Phone from Vodafone super cheap, took it over, called it SoftBank. Boom, and became my phone company, which I've never changed in 20 years in Japan, from Tsuka to J-Phone to Vodafone to SoftBank. And done really, really well at that. While he set up Alibaba in China, he was the outside investor that funded the whole thing, found a school teacher to head it up as his Chinese partner, as the CEO, but he's the silent 49%, the limit that you're allowed to own companies in China. Set up Alibaba, and now the biggest online shopping company in the world. He's done insanely well. SoftBank has just set up an IPO for setting up its mobile company as a separate company to happen this week, and 2 days before that, I thought my phone was having a bug, so I was like forced rebooting it, and I'm like, why isn't my phone working? And I found out when I got back to my desk that everyone was having this issue, that SoftBank had this huge outage for like most of the afternoon earlier this week, and apparently it was caused by an Ericsson software. I mean, some flip phone issue. I mean, still screwing things up basically, Ericsson, and of course a similar issue in the UK at the same time from the same issue, legacy phones. Yeah, messed up SoftBank outages for a whole day. It was kind of freaky. Anyway, so if you had, I believe it was on Thursday, I think, that if you had issues with SoftBank that day, yeah, it's pretty freaky when it couldn't connect. But yes, there were people who actually had nervous breakdowns. There are cartoons, Mr. Cordyceps, on the internet talking about how like people who were out for the day and who like forgot to take their wallet, or were just totally dependent on their phone working. Because apparently even if you had like the mobile suica like built into the phone, that wasn't working either because the connection wasn't connected. So it was literally like suddenly, because of the lack of connection, like for the whole afternoon, these people were like not able to travel, not able to buy anything, not able to get home. Yeah, it was screwed. So it was a significant thing. It was very disturbing. It affected me like 2 or 3 times for about half an hour at a time. I was pretty good pretty quickly, but there we go. Olivia D, would the IPO be worth it? Well, in the end of the day, it is still the number 2 mobile company in Japan, and it's got a pretty stable base of income and consumers, including me. So the idea that somehow I'm having one hiccup like this the day before the IPO, the worst timing possible, means that it's not a buy. Well, you know, you look at the big picture. Sure, it still would, I think, obviously be a pretty safe stock to buy. But yeah, they couldn't have had that timed any worse. And while it might have looked like it was malicious because the timing was just the worst imaginable possible timing, in the end of the day, it looks like it wasn't anyone's fault. So yeah, perhaps that's it. Go get it cheap. My channel, I was talking about my channel earlier and how it works awesome with the YouTube Premium thing. So even with YouTube Premium, it actually makes my channel TV better. And yes, there's some more updates coming on that soon. So yes, that's all very, very good. The truck flipping, you might remember this. I was talking about how in Halloween there were a bunch of people acting like dicks in Shibuya, as seems to happen. Basically, you know, Japan, everyone's basically so sort of buttoned down and well behaved that they don't really know how to behave like when it feels like you can have riots. And so you had all these drunk, stupid people in Shibuya. They found a light truck. These things weigh like 50 kilograms. They weigh like, you know, which is like 10 pounds. I deliberately exaggerate incorrectly my measure, my unit conversions. It's a very light truck, but it was parked near the Shibuya intersection by reveling, drunk, stupid people. These people decided to flip the truck over on its side. They jumped up and down on it. Of course, Shibuya has like 1 million security cameras and surveillance cameras run by the police. And apparently involved in this truck flipping incident, the 4 people who were actually jumping and actually were identified as flipping it over, they were arrested this week. So they waited about a month to actually analyze it. They walked up, they got these 21-year-old students, sort of people working, probably picked them up from their mums' houses, and arrested them, put their names on the news. The police did the standard, same thing as with Gon. They gave them the statement that you should sign this, and they're doing it. Apparently they also detained for questioning 11 other people, including 4 foreigners. Team Gaijin, you're letting Team Gaijin down, including among the foreigners a British person and a French person. The one of the Gaijins didn't say exactly which Gaijin or what nationality they were, but apparently they said, yeah, I thought that in Halloween, you know, in Japan, Halloween was crazy and this sort of stuff was okay to do. Again, I seriously doubt that anyone would actually be so stupid as to say that, but there's probably the prepared statement that the police had, and it all feeds into the idea that they're going to really heavily crack down on this next year. Which is disappointing, but geez, what a stupid thing to do. And again, you know, Japan, there are security cameras everywhere, and they'll bide their time and they'll come and arrest you for it. So don't be a dick, seriously. Like, how stupid is that anyway? Like, who would do that? So yes, just desserts, don't feel sorry for them. This is big news, of course, not Japan related directly, so I won't go too far into it, although the day after, so I guess you guys all know the story about this. The CFO, the daughter of the founder of Huawei, who was the chief financial officer, was visiting the Canadian operation, apparently deliberately avoiding the US operation, because apparently Huawei has a thing that they sell phones to Iran, and Iran is a sanctioned country, which means that under US law violates US law, and they're in trouble with the US anyway. The US government won't buy their phones or anything like that because they believe that the Chinese military are among the owners of the company or beneficiaries of the company, something which Huawei denies. But in any case, it certainly seems to be backed by the Chinese government, which leads people to be paranoid that the devices are probably prone to backdoors and Chinese spying, so they don't want anyone in the American government or in their allies using them. Yes, when this woman was in Canada, which of course has an extradition treaty with the US, the Canadian authorities decided on their own that yes, there's a warrant on her for deportation, not deportation, for what do you call it, extradition to the US for trade violation, for sanction violation busting by this company. And yes, so she is facing being deported to the US, and this is right at the time that, of course, America has the whole trade war thing with China and specific issues over Huawei, so that's a big deal. The relationship with Japan is that the day after this happened, the Japanese government said that, oh, they found suspicious devices in inspected Huawei equipment that was not necessary or listed on the specs for the devices. That was suspicious. They don't know what these extra things are for, but again, the old sort of planted Chinese spyware hardware thing, the Japanese government announced the next day, and they announced that, yeah, we're going to ban sales of Huawei products in Japan, which are actually pretty popular here. They're very great functionality, good value. cheap, and they are popular phones in Japan, at least as sort of second tier phones. They're very well featured. So it looks like the Japanese government, kind of in the sidekick, me too, we're with America kind of thing, the day after this announced that, and New Zealand and Australia did the same thing. They announced, yeah, screw those guys. So the thing is, I mean, in a way, this is kind of a very Chinese thing to do, but of course there is actually a clear legal reason for this, that this is happening. There's a clear, violation of sanctions rules, which the US does take very seriously, and everybody knows this. And she visited Canada. She should have known that she was exposed, and now she's facing extradition. The Chinese government, of course, is acting like the Chinese government. They're saying, although if you ever talk about the 1 million Uyghurs in concentration camps in Western China, they'll say it's none of your business, this is a domestic matter, leave it to us, we talk about our own criminal justice system, whatever. China's saying, release her now or else there'll be consequences, this is unjust. So China, it seems to has more interest in one rich women breaking the law of other countries than it does in the innocently held without charge people that are in all over China. And people just disappear there, right? But of course, I think the thing is right now, who would want to be a CTO, CFO, CEO either in China or about to visit China from a US company, given that that they detain people for no reason at all. And when they do, they don't tell anyone that they've been detained, they just disappear. I mean, the head of Interpol got arrested and disappeared last month. So on the one hand, I can see America's justified doing this, or at least they're in terms of this. If this really is not a political, although it looks political, but even if it's not, even if it's a pure law and order type thing, you can expect that the retaliation that China, based on past practice, is probably going to be pretty nasty. So yeah, I don't know where this is going to go. It's going to be something just interesting to follow, but certainly it looks like Japan and everyone else is getting into line behind America, doubling down on this. So yes, indeed. I'd say it's common sense. It's not a good time, especially if you're in like a mobile phone. I mean, what are the people from Apple going to do? When are they going to visit the the Chinese factories? I mean, yes. So it's going to be kind of nuts. I mean, geez, Olivia D. There are satellite photos of concentration camps for 1 million ethnic Turkish, Uyghurs in Western China. They're emptying out whole cities, other reports, and putting them into re-education camps so that they don't become Muslim terrorists. They're taking whole families, they're emptying out schools, into 1 million person re-education camps in the desert. And they're worried about this. I mean, obviously we understand why they're worried about this, but yes, indeed, the hypocrisy is there. But yes, it's a tough issue, and this will be really interesting to see how it plays out. And yes, indeed, the sarcasm. No, understood. Yes. Oh, by the way, you may be interested to know, on top of the fact that 2/3 of people on the apprenticeship visas in Japan they earn below minimum wage. Not only that, but apparently in the last 3 years of operation, 2,900 have run away, and 69 people have died. And the circumstances under which those 69 visa holders died is not clear, because it was never investigated by the government. Again. We just talked about how bad China is, but I'll tell you what, Japan's looks like they're competing to look just as bad. Seriously, do not come here on an apprenticeship training visa. I mean, even if you're going to be working for the freaking United Nations here, I mean, seriously, pick a different visa. Arts and humanities, seriously, offer to teach them English. Do not come on this visa, because that's what happens to people. That's kind of freaky. There's the chicks. This is cool. DNA, which is an internet gaming company, although they're basically an internet company, and they've kind of had the peak of the social gaming boom, and now they're moving beyond that. They are investing in a fleet of taxis that will be funded by, as you can see, very tastefully presented ads. Sarcasm, not necessarily, hey Jace Mackey, good to see you, by the way. So they're taking the idea of internet self-funding, advertising funded pages, and they're applying this to taxis, and they are starting to offer taxis that will run around and be available for free. You're just going to be subjected to basically psychological ad abuse the entire time you're riding around, but given the price of taxis, it's probably worth it. So actually it's a nice idea. And when we get into the idea of self-driving cars being everywhere and being able to hail any sort of car, these sort of models for how this is going to work, the idea that nobody's going to own cars, when you're going to go out the street and just wave, get an Uber type thing, they're going to come to you, and how that's going to work, if you're going to pay for it, or if it's just going to be self-funding. It's super cool, and DNA is trying to get ahead of the curve on that, so that's pretty cool. That is the Softbank outage, which sucked. This is DNA talking about the free taxis. That was cool. If you want more detail than I'm giving by more intelligent people than I am on a better presented video with sharper, again, downloading, see, this is the thing. At home, I don't have, because I'm being good at home, I don't have 5 minutes to sit down and watch, you know, videos longer than 5 minutes. I can only watch, like, you know, in little gaps. My son's on the toilet, or I'm waiting for him to get out of the shower, or whatever. I can sneak in a video for 5 minutes on the mobile phone, but I can't watch a 20-minute video very easily. However, now I can watch these on the train. I went and immediately started downloading the Tokyo on Fire podcast. Well, not podcast, they're actually live, and this is the best political discussion blog, you know, vlog on YouTube. I watched a couple of episodes of this, and the summary of the difference between them and me is that, you know, I misspeak and mispronounce a lot of things. I miss out facts. I'm wrong 70% of the time. These guys are basically researched, they're prepared, they're eloquent, they're everything that I'm not. And if you enjoy what I do, you should probably watch them as well, because they're much better than me. Although, please don't go away, please stay here as well, because I'll be lonely. But seriously, you should watch these guys, and if you're interested in that story, you should definitely follow that. I believe it was Melbourne, who posts a lot of like nostalgic Japanese content. He found this great documentary from 1981 featuring the CEO, the American CEO, who had brought Kentucky Fried Chicken on inland, or basically into Japan, and what it was like in 1981 setting up an international Kentucky Fried chain, you know, and then the international food chain in Japan. And I tell you, it's a 30-minute documentary, and it's a great slice of life of just living in Japan, working in Japan, and at that time, the opening like 10 seconds immediately, it's got this American boss like with a headband screaming "Banzai, Banzai" at some corporate meeting, which I admit I found extremely disturbing, and I was like, oh god, what is this? But man, those guys were like, I mean, these guys were the real pioneers. They were doing the old international company thing when this didn't exist, and they were hardcore. I mean, and you watch the thing, you get a sense of like, even the Japanese culture back then was just, no, I wouldn't want, I would really, as much as I love Japan, I'd really think hard and twice about the idea of whether I would come to Japan to do what this guy did, and the circumstances that he had to do it. I mean, it was harder now than it was harder when I got here than it is now, but those guys were hardcore, and you know, this is just fascinating. So I really recommend this thing. It's called Enterprise. Colonel Comes to Japan, Kentucky Fried Chicken, 1981. It's awesome. I mean, seriously, you should look at this. So what else have we got here? We've got the people arrested. Oh yeah, there's a new Yamanote Line station that was announced, which is the one down the bottom here. So basically next year I think it's going to be open. It's the in between Tamachi and Shinagawa. There's going to be a new station called Takanawa Gateway, which is a little bit weird why they put that gateway. It's like the idea it's the gateway to the Shibaura Takanawa area of the station, but why they went to all the trouble to put a katakana word down there is a little bit mysterious. So somebody thought they'd expand the theme of taking the logical Japanese name and adding kind of a vague katakana word on the end of it, and do it to the rest of the Yamanote Line and what it would look like. And this is pretty good. You've got going from Takanawa Gateway, perhaps if you're going around, you go to Osaka Gate City, which doesn't make much sense. Gotanda Sexual Place, kind of dodgy city. Meguro Gajoen Hotel. You've got Ebisu Garden Place, which is like the most famous building there. Shibuya Young City. Harajuku Fashion Town. This is like a tour guide. Yoyogi Sports World. They've got a lot of the old Olympic facilities there. Shibuya Skyscrapers. A little bit boring. You could do more with that. Shinokubo Global Square. Again, a little bit boring. Is that the name of an actual building there? So there's a Korean town anyway. Takaranababa College City. It's a university town indeed. Meijiro Imperial College. I guess so. They could have done much more with Ikebukuro. They just called it Westgate Park, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But Otsuka Toyoko Inn, which, come think of it, yeah, the image of Toyoko is pretty much of Otsuka is pretty much like a Toyoko Inn, like a second-rate hotel. Sugamo Grandmothers, yeah, it's pretty much a grandmother town. So there we go. Komagome Rikugi Garden. I actually don't know enough about that place to say that. Tabata nothing. I just realised what a sick burn they did to Tabata. Tabata's got like some nice restaurants, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Nishi Nippori Elite School. I didn't know that had an elite school, but there we go. Nippori Textile. That's getting into Tamachi. Uguisudani Leisure Hotels, the famous love hotel, kind of third-rate love hotel district, but yes, leisure hotels, that's interesting. Ueno Culture Park, Okamachi Jewels, indeed, it's got a lot of jewelers there. Akihabara Electronica, that's an awesome name, they should rename that, I think that's very good. Kanda Historia, yeah, well, it's old-fashioned. So Tokyo Central, Yuracho, almost Ginza, that's actually quite good. That's actually very good, Yuracho, almost Ginza, because that's right, no one really thinks about Yuracho itself as being cool. Shimbashi, Salaryman Sanctuary, that's also quite good, and that's exactly why NHK goes there for views on the street. And Hamamatsu Garden Bayside, Tamachi New Days. So there we go, that's the Yamanote line renamed. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, almost Ginza, actually, I think that's quite clever. NTT Data, if you're an AI engineer, NTT Data, typically a startup job, even like a highly skilled, highly high-tech job, typically if you're looking at like 5 million yen, 50,000 US dollars, you're doing pretty well. NTT Data has announced that they're going to recognize any young person who's an AI engineer, and they're going to pay them a starting salary of 300,000 US dollars. Again, in the US, even in the US, that's a good salary actually, and that's probably a good enough salary to attract people even from overseas. But certainly in Japan, that's like 6 times the normal salary. So basically, the hope is not only is it going to attract anyone who does AI engineering to NTT Data, I suppose, but hopefully it's going to incentivize a lot of students to change their majors. But again, why this isn't happening, given the worker shortage and almost everywhere else, is a little bit strange. 5 mil salary is a good start. It was when I joined, and the salaries haven't changed since I left. So in the 20 years I've been here, I started on 5.5 million, and that was considered top end when I started. Typically, I think most companies would pay about 4.5 mil or 5 mil. And again, this is straight out of college, so there we go. So 5 mil, yeah, 5 mil is good. It's definitely on the good side of average. Again, Japan getting into a little bit of a war arms race against China. They're proposing now both hypersonic missiles, which China is allegedly developing, which can get around missile defenses, as well as aircraft carriers. They're not even going to pretend. I mean, the Izumo, I can't believe it's not an aircraft carrier that they're now calling an aircraft carrier. And hey, why don't we, now that we're out of the closet, why don't we just have a parade with it and make more aircraft carriers? So good luck with that. You can still get World Cup rugby tickets. There's going to be in January next year. If you don't already have tickets, I'm going to be going to the New Zealand-Namibia game because my son wanted to watch a game with lots of tries. No offense to Namibia, but I want to see a good game. But if you want to get other tickets, there will be a chance, I believe, in January next year. It'll be in Japan from September 20 to November 2 next year, and it will be awesome as a New Zealander, but also it'll be a great tournament, so looking forward to that. Trainees below minimum wage. Japanese would totally accept robot caregivers. They'll take anybody, frankly, and why not? Phrases of the year, I'm not going to get into. Cobra Kai was awesome, and that's the show. I had to rush a little bit there at the end, but good to see you. Well, Lauren Sakai, good to see you. You're starting to crave. I'm missing the conversation there, so I'll have to watch it back in the comments later on. That's been an hour 10. Hope you enjoyed the update this week. It's been fantastic talking to you as always. Hope you enjoyed it. It's good to see if we've got any more comments. Indeed, Mr. Quaddy Chip. Well, that would be great for history. It would be bad for my personal entertainment or heart health if I was there watching the game, but you never know. Yes, that's it. Those are the updates for this week. Hang around, same bat time, same bat channel next week. Got a lot of Boninkai this week, so hopefully hold it all together. I am feeling better now, which means I should get to the gym, but I can't because of the morning kais, which is always going to happen this time of year. But try not to let the puka get too big. Remember, if you like the video, please like the video by clicking like, because I like that and I appreciate it. And have a good week, everybody. Kakite ano, keep cool till after school. Peace. Boom. And then he had to awkwardly click the end of the video, and he was totally not ready to do that, so I'm going to do that now. Boom, in the video. 2 a.m. in Sydney. Damn, thank you, Kangan Kodos.